Jim Parr here, and we're going to give you the fundamentals of electric. And so if you're a beginner and you're doing new construction, I'm going to teach you how to do everything from A to Z on wiring a room. And this room that you see behind me is going to be a study or an office / family room. And so we're going to take you through the outlets, how to install the outlets, the height of the outlets, how to install your 2-wire, your 3-wire, how to feed it, and everything from the home run to the electrical box. Now, I'm not an electrician, so just take this with a grain of salt, but I've done enough projects in building homes, and typically I build homes and do a lot of the stuff myself. So I'm always in a project by myself, and so a lot of you are DIYers, and that's where you can relate to this. So remember, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, smash that like button because that helps my videos rank and go up, and that's all I've asked of you. And let's get started. But let's talk about location of boxes. You have your 2-gang boxes and your 1-gang boxes. What's that mean? Well, a 2-gang means that you've got 2 switches in it or 2 outlets, so there's 4 screws in it. A 1-gang is just a single. I always get the deeper boxes because when you're wiring with heavier wire, which we typically use 12-2, which is heavier than 14-2, and it's just so that you can put more loads on your electrical system. So if you want to plug in a drill, a heavy vacuum or shop vac or whatever in your house, you're not going to trip those breakers. 12-2 is a little bit more expensive, and maybe it's overkill. A lot of electricians will use 14-2, but I like having a 20 amp breaker. And why not if you have a 400 amp service coming into the house? So let's talk about location of these boxes. So a switch box should be located not behind the door like I see some people doing, because you don't want to open a door and then have to go behind the door to turn on the lights. You want to be able to, if the knob is over here, that's where your switch box goes. So your door will swing open and your switch box is going to be mounted right here, so you can conveniently flip on the switch and not have to go behind the door. A lot of you already know that, but I've seen homes where the switch boxes are located across the room or behind the door, and it's not convenient to walk in a dark room and not be able to find that. So we're going to talk about the height of these for the outlets and the switch boxes here. So before we talk about installing your outlets and your switches, in your outlets there's a rule, an electrician rule called the 612 rule. And remember, with the 612 rule, this is code, so you need to understand this. So let me explain the 612 rule real quick. So wall receptacles, or your outlets, whatever you want to call them, need to serve a space of 6 feet on each side of that receptacle. So if you say that, that means that there's a max of 12 feet between those. And so if you plug in a lamp, the whole purpose is most lamps have a 6-foot cord on them. So you don't want to stretch. The whole idea is not to put extension cords on these things, because that's what causes issues. But the other thing is you need a receptacle within 6 feet of the door. And let me just show you a drawing real quick. So here's a quick overview. So from this door opening, they have a receptacle right here within 6 feet. And then the other thing is, here's another door within 6 feet. They got a receptacle. The other thing is, on any wall wider than 2 feet, you need to have a receptacle. So if you got a 3-foot wall or a 2-foot wall, you need a receptacle on that wall in there. If you have a 12-foot wall and you have a receptacle here and here, you need one receptacle
in there because 12 foot is max. So if this is over 12 foot, maybe this is 14 feet, you need to have one receptacle on that wall. There is some exceptions for this. That's mainly in your general living areas. Bathrooms and kitchens have their own rules, and we're not going to go into that. We'll go into that on further videos when we wire a bathroom, because on bathroom sinks, depending on your code, check your local codes. NEC is at least 3 feet from the outside of the sink. You cannot have an outlet, obviously, because of the water, and those obviously have to be GFI. And in most cases, GFIs are throughout that bathroom. So just remember that. In hallways, anything greater than 10 feet needs at least one outlet. Let me just say this. If you're wiring a house, make sure it's got enough outlets to be practical, because a lot of people are plugging in different things. We even put in USB plugins that have a combination plug-in USB, because a lot of people are charging their phones, plugging their computers in, whatever it might be. So that's just a quick explanation. I'm not an electrician, so obviously check your codes, check your local codes, and consult with an electrician.
Okay, so we want to measure up about 4 feet from the bottom, from the subfloor. And I wouldn't say about, that's where we're going to mark our line right here, is 4 feet. And you can either mount your box above that, in the center of that line. So here's our mark right here. Or have the box at the top of it. And what I like to do, I like to have a little bit lower box, and they say ADA for handicap is 43 inches. So I would recommend that you do your boxes a little bit lower and have them at the top of the box, even with that 4 feet. And one thing about these boxes, there's a little flange here, or a little divot that they have on them, and you can see it right here, and that's for your 1/2-inch sheetrock. So you want to make sure that it sits out so that you have that lip on there, so when you install your sheetrock, it's not going to cover that box or go over it, so it'll set out the way it should. So we're going to hammer that on real quick and go from there. This 2-gang box here will provide our power for our outlets and our ceiling fan. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we start wiring those, but let's head to the ceiling and get the ceiling mount ready for the ceiling fan. Okay, first things first, we're going to put on our safety glasses. We're working over our head, and you need to find the center of the room. So if you're going to mount your ceiling fan, it makes sense, or even a light, it makes sense to get the center of the room. We already found that, so we marked our studs here, and we're on our room at 71.5, and then 92 inches from here. It almost falls on the stud. So there's a couple different boxes. We're using this one box that's got a supporting rod in between, and then you tighten up the box. It's a fiberglass box. There's saddle boxes, or you can actually mount a 2x4 in between here and then mount your box to that, which adds the rigidity for the weight of the ceiling fan. Either way, whatever you use doesn't matter to us. So what we're going to do is we're going to tack this in. So this one has a couple of little splines on it, and they work from time to time. And I'm going to show you a little secret that we have. We've got something called palm nailer, and we use this because I'm working alone quite a bit. It's got a magnet, so it holds the nails. And this works great for electrical boxes too. But we're just going to find that up there, and then we're going to make sure our hose is on the other side of this ladder. And then we center it, and we just nail it in. As easy as that. So we're going to put a couple nails in here. We're using a galvanized nail. And then we're going to secure the other side here. And we secure the 2 screws in here once we know it's dead center. And that's how you do your ceiling fan fixture. So let me show you a little bit what I did here. So we're installing the outlet boxes, and we know that we're only 5 feet from the door. So this is obviously within code here. And then here is our outlet, and we measured up. Some people measure up 18 inches and then go 18 inches and put the box below. I do 12 inches from the floor, and then I put the box on top of that line and line it up there, and make sure you have those flanges sticking out again. So we'll go ahead and nail this box, and there you go. So we're going to go around the room and install the other boxes, and we'll get that done. What I like to do is measure up about 20 inches from the floor, and that's where I'm going to drill my wires, or my holes for my wires. So I go around and mark 20 inches on all the studs, so I know where to drill, and it keeps my wire nice and even all the ways across. So we'll go ahead and drill this first hole, and then we'll go around the room and just continue around. So one thing to remember is hit the center of the stud. Hey, when you're working in tight spots, it's good to have a right angle drill to get through there. Okay, so we're using 12-2 wire as we explained earlier. It's heavier and it just takes a bigger load. It may be overkill, but we like using 12-2. It's yellow colored to differentiate between 14-2 and 12-2. But we're going to unravel this and get enough wire, because we got to go around this room, and we're going to start with this outlet here. We're going to run up to the outlet and then down to this first, or from the switch box to the outlet here. So we're going to run our wire now from the switch down to this outlet, because the switch here is what's going to power all the outlets throughout the room. So I'm going to go to the first outlet here, and I'm going to feed the wires through. And then we're going to wrap around and go into this outlet. But we want to make sure we got enough wire when we feed through here, and we want to staple within 4 to 6 inches. And I like to leave out 8 inches of wire. Some people leave out 6 inches of wire. Before we staple this, there's 2 kinds of staples. There's 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch. We need to run our ceiling light first, our 12-3, and then we'll bundle these wires together and we'll staple them 4 inches from the box. And then after that, we're going to staple them every 4 feet. But let's run this wire to the outlet box, the first outlet box, and then we'll go from this box, the switch box, up to the ceiling with 12-3 wire. Okay, one thing we want to do is we want to leave enough wire to go through the box, staple it here, and then come out 8 inches. So I'm going to cut this just so I've got enough. And remember, on some of these boxes in the back, some have knockouts, but most of them, this one in particular, has a knockout. So you got to knock out that with the screwdriver. And but some of them have a flange that actually grab onto the wire. So we're going to cut this wire. And I've got these good Klein pliers that will cut some heavy wire. So we're going to feed this through. And then we're just going to leave enough wire so that we can staple and then have some wire hanging out of the box. So that's how you do that. Ultimately, you want to have 2 wires coming out of each outlet, and then you wire those in series. The last outlet, you'll just have 1 wire because that ends the series. And then you want to attach your staple. Okay, next thing we're going to do, we're going to run the wire for the ceiling fan and the light. And so we need to drill through this double plate up here. I'm on Big Blue. That's what I call this ladder. And Big Blue gets left out quite a bit after the grill ladder came into play. But we're going to go ahead and drill up through here. And being it's a double plate, it takes a little bit to go through there. And then we're going to run our wire. So one thing I like to do is pull out the wire and straighten it out, just so that it's not coiled, and the flatter it is, the easier it's going to be to run. So just pull it through your hands and get enough wire to go up through the ceiling from the switch box. And this is our 12-3 wire. So it's got 3 wires, a ground, and 3 wires in it. So we're going to go up and feed it over the rafters. And then to determine the length of the wire, I like to go around the box like this, around the back of the box. And then I take a good pair of wire cutters and I cut the wire and leave 6 to 8 inches. Nice and clean. We've got 2 wires coming out. And then we'll run our feed to the panel. So here we've got 12-3 and 12-2. So we have a red for our fan power, a black for our light, and then we have a copper for our ground and a white, which is neutral. And then over here is 12-2, and we have 2 wires and a copper. So this is our outlet power, and this is our neutral for the outlets. So you can see how we ran this wire. We've got a wire running up to our ceiling here, and that's going to our ceiling fan and light. And then we have our wire going from the outlet over to the first outlet. So we're going to power that outlet, and then we run our sequence around the room, and then we go put that wire into that outlet, and we just continue our sequence around until we get to this last outlet right there. So now I'm going to show you how to bring your wires in and connect these 2 together and prepare them for inspection, basically. So one thing to remember is they ask for at least 6 inches out of the box. I like to go a little bit stronger because I can always trim it off later, but you can't add wire. So you can see I've got 9 inches. That might be a little overkill. So I'm using a Romex stripper. Can also use a utility knife that works just as well. But one thing to remember is you don't want to mess up the insulation on this wire because you don't want to be pulling additional wires. So basically it just goes like that, and you just pull the insulation, and cut that all the ways back, and you just want to get a good pair of wire cutters to do this with. And then once we get the other one stripped, we'll then at that point we'll bring the wires together and separate the blacks from the whites, from the neutrals. So all we're doing is just getting the wires ready. We're not wiring outlets because that's something you can't do. So we're going to put our blacks together, or our whites, our neutrals, our hots together, like so. And then we're going to take these two grounds, and we got these crimp sleeves, and they look like so. You can get them on my Amazon store, or better off, just go to your local big box store, home improvement store, and grab them there. So you're just basically going to slide the crimp sleeve on here, like so, and then we're going to twist that on. So before we crimp that copper together, I'm just going to strip these down and just take off about a ½ inch. I'm going to slide my copper crimp sleeve, and I'm just going to smash that together. And then I'm going to twist these wires together. And basically, we're twisting them to make one wire. There we go. And you don't want to twist them too much, otherwise they'll end up breaking. And that's not good. So you're going to take this one wire and cut it and leave about that much on. And then you're just going to fold this over. And that's all there is to it. So you got one solid ground, and then I basically bundle these up and just roll them up and put these into the box. And then we'll address those once the sheetrock goes on. Okay, now that we got the receptacles or the outlets all hooked up and tied together, our final step is to go from the switch box all the ways up through the ceiling and over to our panel, which is just in the other room here. So we don't have the panel hooked up, but we will have a video on the panel. But let's run this home run and run it over, and then I'll show you how to mark those wires. So we'll get our trusty big blue here, and we're going to run our wire up through. And we need to give us enough wire to make it over to that switch panel. So we have our wire, home run wire going up over the rafters, and we'll staple that to the rafters, and then it comes down to where our panel will be right here, and we're putting in the home line panel. We got plug-on neutral readies. That's the new thing. So, and a rule of thumb for a panel is it looks like a lot of extra wire, but electricians like to have about 4 feet of extra wire because they've got to feed it around those panels sometimes. I'm going to mark these wires to what they are. So obviously the 3 wire is the fan, so we're just going to put fan on there. And this is our power source, so we'll put power on there. And then this is going to our receptacles, so I'm just going to put RCP for receptacles. And that way they're all labeled, and then we can tuck them back in. And then we'll go over to the panel. We'll make sure we got all our staples on in the appropriate places at all the boxes. But the most important thing is we're going to go to the panel and label that wire that it's for this room here, whatever you call that, bedroom 1, bedroom 2, whatever it is. We're going to do a quick overview. We went from the switch over to the panel up to the light, and we wired the light with the 3-wire. And then from the switch box, we go to the receptacles. We tied those wires in. This is the last one here, which is tucked in. We have our staples within 4 to 6 inches of the box. We stripped our wires. We tied our grounds together. And then we did our home run up to the through the rafters, stapled that on, and down to the panel box, which is going to be installed over there. You can see that. So if you guys have any questions, comments, I know there's some electricians out there that'll comment on different things. Everybody has their own way of doing things, feeding wire, but I would like your feedback on what your best practice is. Each state is going to vary from code to code, so check your local codes. And we're going to have a panel installation video, so hit that bell notification so you get notified when I upload that video. And then hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get up to, I think we just passed 1,000 subscribers, so hopefully when you see this video, we're at 100,000 subscribers. So appreciate you guys watching, and love to help you with your build.